All right, welcome back in again, everybody. It is time for the grand finals. ChaeHolic versus Minocaro, both coming through with a 3-2 victory in their respective semifinals. Joining me again for this one, at Maz. What are you feeling now?
Thank you very much, Scorch. I'm feeling that I'm ready for the grand finals. Minocaro, ChaeHolic, two of the best players in Feria for a long time. Everyone knows this. It's no secret. Minocaro from France, ChaeHolic, South Korea. We just saw the fall of Crisscross from Curacao, unfortunately, but he did very well, beaten by ESF Don in the third place match. So this is it for all the marbles. Well, most of the marbles. $1,250 to the winner. I believe $750 for second place. So lots on the line here. And these players have been waiting, watching the third place match, and they're ready to get started in this best of 5 Crucible format. I think we're ready to go.
Yeah, we have had very, very strong runs by both players throughout the course of the day. Very interesting games we saw earlier on. We, of course, watched Minocaro take down, as you mentioned, the aforementioned Crisscross in their semifinal. Don't believe we saw ChaeHolic earlier on in the day, but if you wanted to quickly see what he played over, it was cast on the Korean stream for the semifinal. That being said, let's jump right into it. Get the players both into the ban lists. ChaeHolic's looking very similar to what SF Don was running with the Lias across the board.
It's the old Laya strategy, and just fill your selections with Laya. But yeah, you can still tell what ChaeHolic is running, even though he's hiding it behind those. Ooh, look at his sunglasses. He's got that one of those new yaks. I'm not even sure which one that is, but
The Gangster Yak or something.
gangster yak maybe. Yeah. Minocaro looking like he wants to ban some green yellow today, not wanting to get into that sort of match. And ChaeHolic, not a fan of the red yellow.
ChaeHolic looked like it was a very quick ban onto the burn, but it was just a hover. It's now locked in, so not wanting to face off against that from Minocaro. We saw that deck also banned from Crisscross, so we again will not see it come out. Minocaro, yeah, it looks like he does not want to deal with Sack, especially if his burn is getting removed. You don't really have what you would maybe consider the ideal counter out of your lineup. So just take that off the table as well. And yep, now both locked in. So mono blue for both players. ChaeHolic left with a burn and mono red, and Minocaro with those 2 mono greens that we saw earlier on from him.
Yeah, and if you think about how this is going to play out with these 2 mono green decks from Minocaro that we know are pretty big and beefy, Minocaro will be happy to play against either the red decks. What he's worried about and what he needs to defeat and what he's probably focusing on is defeating this blue deck. And we saw ChaeHolic just immediately picked the blue deck there for the first match. So if the blue deck loses versus these green decks, it's going to be an uphill battle for ChaeHolic. So he really wants to secure this first game here.
Yeah, it's the interesting strategy of, do you go for what you potentially view as your best matchup, or do you leave what would be your best deck for last as your essentially last case scenario and try to steal wins in other ways? ChaeHolic going for this blue, as you mentioned. Blue historically has been pretty decent against green because it has Frogify, it has Humbling Vision, it has ways to reduce the power of these big, beefy green creatures. Whereas, the only other option for Minocaro would potentially be run the mirror. And then if ChaeHolic loses that, or he loses to one of these greens, he's really potentially going to struggle because he doesn't have those good counter cards.
Yeah, and yeah, like you're saying, the blue, the deep blue here, you can call it, very effective against green with all the transformation effects, but also the ramp, just the amount of ramp with cards like Forbidden Library. Even Aurora's Trick can do things like take these wood elementals later in the game, and of course, finishing off with Reaver. We could see some Radiances in here. So really effective late game deck here for ChaeHolic. He's happy to play against this green deck. And he really needs the win here. And I'm wondering what Minocaro is feeling. Oh, he runs Moby in this green deck. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, Moby coming out, and a mythic Moby at that. As you mentioned briefly, the Aurora's trick there. Certain decks you just don't have good targets for, but against this green, you potentially can grab a Wood Elemental, maybe
The
a
huntress is here.
a Deepwood Stalker, depending on how those trades potentially can go if Minocaro is running those in this version of his green deck. Runen coming out very early on can be a bit of a gamble, but at this stage, ChaeHolic doesn't have the lakes necessary for a Frogify, so it should at least get a little bit of value from Minocaro.
Yeah, early rune in here, super scary, but ChaeHolic is playing blue, so lots of ways to deal with that. But Minocaro is putting on lots of pressure. He recognizes his role in this game. Like we're talking about, man, so many forests already. He's up to 8 forests. That's in Moby range. But Minocaro recognizes his role. He needs to finish this. He needs to close it out before ChaeHolic starts dropping all the libraries, starts playing Dream Reaver and all this. So he's doing the right thing. He's doing what he needs to do. Whether or not it's going to work remains to be seen. Right now, only Battletoads to defend against all these big giant Greenias.
And a big thing as well is the fact that ChaeHolic potentially may have 3 Frogifies. Don't know if there's going to be something like Mirror Phantasms in the deck. It's kind of a hit or miss on Reavers, whether those are being run, but that means that there is basically 3 removal cards in ChaeHolic's deck and way more creatures that need to be removed coming out from Minocaro. So the fact that Minocaro can be aggressive here before potentially all of those removals will come out, he's just setting up for if the first big creature gets Frogified, you still won't have a response to the second, and then the third, and then snowball the advantage from there.
Minocaro employing the green E strategy. That's where you draw an E on the board with forest. It's very effective, very popular. But yeah, we're going to see a parade of green down the side of the support and into the face. That's what ChaeHolic's going to deal with. And he's just not drawing great answers yet.
God,
or rather,
Aurora's trick.
Aurora's trick? Oh, he's going to trick the Runen.
He's going to trick
the Humbling
Runen.
Vision. Oh no, he played Emperor's Command. Okay. Oh man, that's really nice.
It's really good to deny the value from Minocaro. It doesn't end up being quite as impactful in terms of like you're going to get that Runen in hand, but you're never going to actually have the forest to be able to play it because you can't play slow enough to go to the 3 forests necessary for Runen, as well as getting to the 7 lakes necessary for Dream Reaver, unless it's much later on in the game, and that timing just doesn't usually happen. So this play that ChaeHolic went for is entirely about denying that value from Minocaro playing Runen over and over again.
Minocaro just gained like 15, 16 Feria from a gigantic Oak Fog. He has 18 Feria to spend, Moby to use. Runen goes back in hand for ChaeHolic, actually. Ethereum Golem. Now, we know Minocaro likes to feed. Even though he has 18 Feria, is he going to feed his Ethereum Golem? I kind of highly doubt that. I don't think that's necessary. The Forbidden Library is on board. So many forests. The E is ruined. It's now just a big mass of forests. 15 damage staring down ChaeHolic. This is quickly going out of control for the blue.
Yeah, and this is kind of one of those situations I mentioned earlier on in one of the games previously where you can kind of let the library burn your opponent down if you have enough damage to finish that before they get value. So this type of situation, Minocaro doesn't have it available right now to actually attack through and hit the library, but the fact that he could just leave that library alive, hit for potentially somewhere in 15 or 16 damage next turn, and then have that self-burn to actually finish off the game means Minocaro probably leaves the library alive and just goes for the orb instead of focusing resources into punching through to actually kill that structure off.
And that's one of the radiances of potentially 2 in this deck. ChaeHolic with a second library in hand. He cannot play Dream Reaver. He would love to. He would love to have something giant that he could put on board. Runen is going to be unplayable for the rest of the game. Most likely, he's not going to go up to 3 forests. And man, what a difficult situation. ChaeHolic does not want to lose this game. It's going to be very difficult, or at least I would think more difficult with his other decks versus this very, very beefy green deck.
Six Lake does come out, so potentially 7th comes down next turn. And that sets up for the Dreamreaver, but just not really anything else for ChaeHolic to play right now. And unlike the game that we saw Crisscross win, ChaeHolic can't in this turn set up for the Radiance and then have the Dreamreaver coming down next turn. Is going to go for the second library, I think essentially just as a body block here.
He also, at the last second there, used an Emperor's Command to heal himself back up to 20. I think it only gave him +2. I think it was only healing of 2. But I think he's that worried about it. Next turn, he has a lot of explosive potential here. So many legends in Minocaro's deck. Look at this. Dwardia and Ulan.
No way to punch through currently to get enough damage. Really difficult balancing act for Minocaro right now of how much damage he pushes to attempt to set up potentially like a 2-turn lethal, and how low ChaeHolic potentially would get to then recover with a potential Radiance. So a little difficult for Minocaro just judging where do I need to set my opponent's life total to be able to end this game on the way that I want.
Tossing away Ulani there, who's not going to be of any use with her ability anytime soon, feeding her away. And both libraries, no, one library is going to survive. Does this whale hit face or the library? I mean, control-wise, you'd hit the library. And then the game-wise, you'd hit face. But what's the correct decision here, do you think? It's going face.
So face sets it to 14, library goes down to 12, and there is more than enough damage here to win that. Radiance would bring ChaeHolic back up to currently 16, but also reduce him down to if he +1s, he could still get it, but really heads up by Minocaro as well, having that Wood Elemental defensively to taunt a potential Radiance Dreamreaver play.
Yeah. Well, he can't even do that, right, unless I'm calculating wrong, because that's 17, and he can go to 16, right? Oh, if you're saying he gets himself? Well...
Yeah, this isn't going to be enough, I don't think.
Yeah, there's no way he can block.
Trying to see exactly the same way that Crisscross lined it up in the previous series of go for the Radiance first, heal enough, and then go for the Dreamreaver next turn, but it wouldn't have been enough life, and there's a defensive taunter coming out from Minocaro, so...
Ooh. Okay. So he's going to go to 7 minus 2. He's going to have 3 left after this? Well, he's already saying well played.
Yeah, that punches through. There's 10 available to come in, and then end the turn, and the Forbidden Library will deal the extra 2 damage. ChaeHolic will burn down himself from the production. Minocaro taking game number 1.
Library lethal. That'll get you every time. Man, that was rough for ChaeHolic. He had a good start to it, a good starting hand. Minocaro's was really good too, though. And blue deck is gone. It's gone for the rest of this match. ChaeHolic's going to have to plow through these green decks with his remaining set here. So he's going to either have to go... Oh, he just snaps onto the red there. That surprises me versus the green deck. The other deck being burned might have more of a chance, but I would think at least. But have we seen... Yeah, we've seen ChaeHolic's red deck. Isn't it a mid-range red deck?
I have not. We haven't spectated ChaeHolic through earlier on through the day. Just would have been potentially having seen some of them in the semifinal cover over on the Korean stream.
Okay, it's looking pretty mid-rangey. It could be. I'm wondering if, you know, my wonder is if he has cards like Havoc in here. Havoc would be great against this sort of heavy green deck. But yeah, it looks like a mid-range combat, really strong deck. But now the roles are switching. So whereas in last game, Minocaro had to push to end the game quickly, ChaeHolic now has to push to end the game quickly because Minocaro's late game is going to overwhelm ChaeHolic. So we're going to see a bit of a role reversal here, and ChaeHolic's going to have to be much more aggressive.
Yeah, this is a matchup where We've talked about earlier on in the day, if green can get rolling, their big creatures are just too much most of the time for red to deal with. So these early combat creatures in hand for ChaeHolic potentially can gain some value if you can get Gift of Steel onto the right one and line up the right trades. But outside of that, it's just get onto your opponent as quickly as possible and then snowball that into deny them Faria, then they can't play their big creatures, and then you just win from there.
And we saw almost the same scenario, I think, earlier in Chris Cross's game, where I believe it was him, where he was forced into this aggressive red play against the green deck. It's the best thing you can do against it, usually. And it's when you put an underground boss up there, you don't have to worry about harvesting. You can hopefully get a couple rounds of combat out of that creature, which is super valuable. There is an Emperor's Command for Minocaro, but it doesn't reduce the health enough to where it will take, it'll still take 2 rounds of combat before that creature is gone. And that's good for ChaeHolic because he needs that Faria. He's not going to be harvesting. He's going to be trying to dump as much as he can in his opponent's face.
Yeah, that's usually why we see this type of a package used in Red Rush as well. There was a long period of time where the aggressive red decks were basically entirely what we call red angry. But now the red rush or just red aggressive style is to go for essentially this. You have combat creatures which generate extra Faria, so you don't need to worry about actually setting up your creatures around the wells. You can set them up right in the middle of the board. You're either attacking into creatures or into your opponent's orb and generating extra Faria for yourself with that combat, and you don't need to worry as much about the collection. So it's just a deck where your opponent can't really deny you from having the resources like we usually talk about as a strategy when you're defending against Rush. You're just able to generate that extra, like we see here, the extra Faria lines up that ChaeHolic gets a fantastic clear onto all of Minocaro's creatures.
Yeah, this is a great start. Clearing the board, still with your Brigand on board, a big 5/6 next to face. Minocaro does have 10 Faria, but this is exactly what your goal is when you're doing this with your red deck. This is what you want to happen. It's looking really good right now for ChaeHolic, which is good news because he has 2 of these green decks to go through. Minnow can go up to 5 forest this turn, which puts Therian Golem in range, and that's a big deal against red. There's a Grove Caller that he could save for some neat tricks next turn. And yeah, he's going to put the Ground Shaker in range of the Therian Golem. He's still going to take a little bit. I wonder if he harvests with the Underground Boss and then hits with the Ground Shaker. Yeah, I think you would do that because you still preserve your boss for later, right?
Yeah, you can still push 6 damage this turn, as well as getting that combat. Again, gets you the more Faria for another creature as a reinforcement. As you mentioned, very heads up by Minocaro, the Emperor's Command onto the Ground Shaker. Even though there are 2 creatures there, you're reducing the attack by exactly the same. Putting the -1 onto the Ground Shaker instead of using the command onto the Underground Boss means that the Ground Shaker actually dies to the Therian Golem. So even though the total of the play is basically exactly the same, it's way much more impactful when you can get that life decrease onto a creature that you can then clear.
I'm surprised that Ilani is in this green deck because it's so rare that you're going to have creatures not on board with the screen. If you have no creatures on board with the screen deck, you're probably losing, right? So I don't really see how she belongs in this deck. She doesn't seem to fit it. Maybe something else could go in that slot, but Minocaro play knows a lot better than I do.
Yeah, to me, Ilani is just a phenomenal comeback mechanic whenever you need it. Green, as I mentioned, kind of struggles if you aren't collecting because a lot of their impactful cards are in the 5-6 Faria cost. So you almost always need at least 1 creature collecting. So if you start to fall behind in more of mid-range matchups or just big creature matchups, you can get Ulani down in a more protected position between the wells. It has Divine, your opponent potentially can't reach it. And then you start to get that collection rolling where you can get your big creatures back down onto the board. At least would be my expectation of why it's in that deck.
Well, right now it's doing a good job, or she's doing a good job of blocking that space, which is nice in that he can't attack with both the Brigand and the Ground Shaker. Life is getting pretty low for Minocaro. There are no heals in hand or in sight. And Ulani is relevant here because, once again, that Emperor's Command of the Ground Shaker means it can't be cleared so easily. There are no tricks in hand for ChaeHolic, only creatures. So he's going to have to make that choice. Whether to draw, let's see, we should probably do the math of the Brigand. So he's going to have 8, possibly 9. So if he draws, that eliminates the possibility of playing both Brigand and Herald. I don't see that as too bad because you just play an Axe Grinder instead if you want to draw and look for something extra. But the question is, what are you looking for? And I think the answer is some kind of ping, maybe a Ground Shaker or maybe even a Cypher's Wrath to help clear this out and make more room to hit the orb.
Yeah, that seems like the big thing right now would be finding any extra burst damage that you can. Cypher's Wrath, Flame Burst, essentially finding those while you can still end the game before your opponent is stabilizing. Right now, Minocaro has a 5/7 that it appears you can't currently deal with. Ulani is potentially, maybe enough that it can clear off the remainder of a creature, potentially like the 2/1 Brigand that exists there. So if Minocaro over the next turn or two is able to stabilize the game, ChaeHolic would be drawing just to try to find the potential extra burst to end the game. But in this situation, he's just saying, nope, need the 1 extra fairy, I get the extra body onto the ground. I'm going to end this with creatures before I even need the events.
And I really like how he positioned his Ground Shaker and Brigand, blocking that highway, as it's sometimes called, the highway to the face. It's protecting, it's doing a lot of things. It's protecting the Brigand. It's allowing a path for the Brigand to face for the Ground Shaker to rotate around. But even without that, he's got these other creatures that are backing up as well. So he has a lot of fairy generation on board. He's really generating more fairy than Minocaro is. And he's even harvesting at the same time. So going to be tough here. Now, Minocaro does have a Feed the Forest in hand, which is going to be a potential to get some cycle going on here and some lots of fairy and dump a bunch of units. And he is going to go ahead and do that right away in the Therian Golem.
I was actually a little surprised Minocaro a couple turns ago went for the Grove Caller movement with the Therian Golem there, flip it over to the other side. Although it did get the collection, he moved... I got it in time. He did move the potential biggest creature that he had on board out of range of it being a good target for the Shamanic Dance that he has in hand. So now a couple turns later, he needs to get another big creature down and then get the Shamanic Dance down.
With the Blossoming Kodama combo there, enabling the Moby play onto the the Herald of War, I believe. Yep. So Bomb Slinger here, not enough to play. Oh, he could after he generates some fairy. Oh, that is so close to lethal. He's just not. Wait, is he there? Wait, Cypher's Wrath.
Not that I can see because it lines up really weird. But you can attack. You can attack in Cypher's Wrath and then shift your creature over. Maybe even just play the Axe Grinder as another creature, but
yeah, I don't think it was there. I think it was super, super close. But yeah, the positioning was weird. He couldn't do the Slinger and then move the creatures correctly and then Cypher and still have something left to. When there's a Radiance, that's not the Radiance you want. You want the other one when you're 3 health. Minocaro surrendering, and ChaeHolic evens it up after losing with the blue deck. Very nicely done. That is textbook. If you're playing a red deck and you run up against a green player on the ladder, that is textbook what you should be doing to put the game in your favor, and he did it.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to win the long game to a big green when they can get bigger and bigger creatures down every single time. So just going for the rush, get on them as quick as possible, and try to deny their creatures from actually sticking onto the board and even it up 1-1.
Now, this green deck, if I remember correctly, is even later game. It's even deeper into the late game with it's even got Aerodon. I think it's got Oakling in it. things like that. So
Yeah,
it's even more of a concern.
the one that we just saw from Minocaro is more of like a big green. Oak Fathers, Kodama, Therian Golems. This one was more of the Beastmaster style. Of course, has the Aridin, it had Oakling, and then as we see Minocaro pick one up now, it has the Beastmaster in it as well. So very much is about the slow snowball here for Minocaro. Early Beastmaster, early Aridin, and then get all of those stats to stack up through the course of a game.
Now look how his strategy changes here against this different green deck. Last game we saw him go directly for face. Now he's going up the side, which surprises me a lot, to be honest, because we know this deck is, it's even, you want to give it even less time to get going. Like this Beastmaster is going to be terrible to deal with. Going for the Oakling first here.
Groundshaker picked up now, but ChaeHolic not going to go for it. I thought he might just go for the double prairie and, like you said, get more aggressive. Just going to go for a boss, potentially set up. It potentially could just be Garridan next turn, actually come out from ChaeHolic.
Yeah, I don't think that's super bad. I think where this game is going to hinge, where this game is going to pivot, is where, after this Oakling dies, what it lands on, and dealing with the results of that. I think that's going to be very difficult. Ooh, Baldurian is really good.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised because Minocaro is setting up for creatures are about to come together and it looks like your Oakling is about to die, that he didn't get Aridin down on that turn. He played the boar instead, which is, yes, more stats immediately. But if Oakling hits Aridin, it's kind of awkward because you want Aridin to die. So if you were to get Aridin down on that previous turn instead of the boar, if it dies to a Garridan, you're kind of okay with it because you then get the stat buffs onto all of your creatures.
Yeah, and drawing Dwardia now. Garridan was saved. So the more Minocaro plays now, the happier maybe ChaeHolic is. We'll see what he plays. It's going to be, if it's Dwardia, it's going to be a 7/7. And Garridan's not going to deal with that very well. And Beastmaster will still survive. There's no... well, he'll be able to Groundshaker as well. Okay.
ChaeHolic there just going for the save. Has enough Faria now coming up on this turn to go Garridan and Groundshaker. It doesn't quite clear everything, but it does clear the important part of getting the Beastmaster down.
Yeah, and I think this is where Garridan's going to come. And I think this is, yep, and the Groundshaker follows.
Maybe just... I'm wondering if you just attack the Brigand into the Grove Guardian, you Garridan on your well in the bottom corner, and then you Baldurian straight up there.
Without the Groundshaker?
Yeah, you potentially give up one more buff from the Beastmaster, but you get a better clear onto the Grove Guardian than with playing the Groundshaker.
I see that play. I don't think that's a bad play either. To me, it's the Beastmaster clock. To me, this should not be on board any longer. The longer this is on board, like it's just getting too much value. And you know, ChaeHolic recognizes that as a threat. I think he needs to clear it. But your line, I don't think was bad either. Two kind of different results here, but in the end, I think ChaeHolic has a slightly better board compared to Minocaro. Because he would have lost his Brigand. He would have a Garridan.
He would have, in this situation, yeah, Garridan would be where the Brigand currently is, and the Groundshaker would be Baldurian. The Beastmaster would still be alive, but that trade wouldn't have happened. ChaeHolic would not have lost Groundshaker.
Yep. Oh, and the buff from the Oakling there, landing on the Willow, that's a huge problem. 6/12 to do 12 damage. Playing Lie would be great, actually, right now to deal with that. But it's going to be a couple turns. Meanwhile, that Willow can just easily clear the Groundshaker. So the choice I think ChaeHolic's going to have is Baldurian or Leia.
Yeah, Leia, as you mentioned, can come down and be really good into one of these big creatures. Unfortunately for ChaeHolic here, looks like the Willow's already going to get a value trade onto the Ground Shaker. So then Leia gets reduced value if she is what ChaeHolic uses to clear here. Potentially, you just, again, go Baldurian, combination of Ground Shaker, Baldurian, and maybe the Brigand is the extra damage that you need to clear off the Willow. And then the protection that Baldurian has keeps him alive, that you hopefully can translate that into proccing the Corrupt ability. Very difficult for both players right now of trying to get the maximum value out of each of their cards and really trying to bait their opponent into using something that they can then respond to.
I was wondering there if he wasn't going to do a little trick where he would have sacrificed his Ground Shaker, Horsemastered the Brigand, took the Willow to 5, which put it just in range for Baldurian to hit once and then clear. The risk being, of course, any kind of Shamanic Dance or something like that. But I saw that in there as well. I think it's just, I'm not even sure I like just playing Baldurian here, because what you want Baldurian to be doing, obviously, is moving on to enemy land. And with now 2 Willows, even with just the one, though, that was the one that mattered, it would have been difficult to do that. Like, he could have just moved his Willow down. He chose not to because he had other cards that he could play. But I just don't see playing Baldurian like this that you'd ever hope to get the Corrupt trigger, which is what you really want here, I think.
Right. It was kind of one of those hopeful, if my opponent doesn't have taunt, I get a lot of value. But if they do, I potentially get stuck in a position like this. So Minocaro did have a good response there, taunts it in place, also taunts it efficiently in place where it's only 1 damage that actually pops the protection on a creature that also survives that combat trigger.
This is a tough call. You don't want to lose your protection, on just this one attack creature, this living Willow. You don't want that to happen. But what other choice do you have? Your only trick is a Flame Burst. That's not super useful in this case. Yeah, just drawing for something, some kind of answer here. Even like I think a Ground Shaker wouldn't be bad. Just getting rid of the Aerodon with the Flame Burst. That's going to buff everything in Minocaro's hand and neck by 1, which is like a gigantic Beastmaster on everything.
And going for the Laia, again, it's not perfect because your opponent's creature that you're hoping to clear with Laia has already gained enough value. But in this situation, it's now Minocaro, do you either trade Baldurian or do you trade Laia? So was nicely set up that way by ChaeHolic, because now Laia can get a little more value, but another Beastmaster picked up for Minocaro should see that come down into the far side of the board, and we start to see him get more value out of that card again.
Yeah, this is tough. If Minocaro gets... If after the skirmish is over, we've been having constant fights every single turn, just trades over and over. After the dust settles, and if Minocaro, has a few more creatures than ChaeHolic, it's going to be insurmountable. So ChaeHolic cannot let up the pressure. I like this land movement over to the left. Both players only harvesting once, so ChaeHolic's got that going for him. Minocaro now with 5 Faria and the ability to play a pretty big Duardia. Also feed the forest on an Oakling. That would be pretty nice.
Yeah, especially because you get the extra +1 buff from the Beastmaster as well. Because ChaeHolic went for that more greedy clear, killing off the 1/2 of the Living Willow with Laia rather than killing off the Beastmaster. Get the extra buff down the Oakling, buffing Duardia. As you said, it is a massive creature right now. The only problem for Minocaro is that once he plays it, he can't really use it to go aggressive towards the orb and threaten a race. It's just going to have to be used to clear off these creatures from ChaeHolic.
Yeah, just the cascading effect of these buffs, giving the extra Faria for Feed the Forest, giving him just enough Faria to pull off. I think he's actually had a little extra Faria to pull off the Oakling onto Duardia. And yeah, 13/13. Yeah, it doesn't even need to hit orb. It just needs to do work. It needs to clear, do the value trades. That'll be more than enough. Meanwhile, he can build up other creatures, other forces. ChaeHolic really has a limited number of turns to do something here.
All right, we're going to see a couple creatures come down. Instead of going for like the Ground Shaker, putting another big body onto the board, ChaeHolic spreading his forces out, essentially flooding, rather than one big statted creature. Shimmering Statue ends up kind of in an awkward position here for both players because ChaeHolic has to maneuver around it to eventually get to the orb, but Minocaro here actually has to attack into it if he wants to get close to these creatures. So looks like he's going to go for that now.
Here's where you ask yourself how crazy Minocaro is. Does he feed the forest on Dwardia? I only say that because earlier he was just feed the foresting everything, but you got to keep that Dwardia block in that blocking position. I think losing the game, you lose this game by not having defenders, and you have the biggest defender you can have. Put a Laya behind and just keep slogging it out while ChaeHolic tries to find an answer for the biggest Dwardia I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, if Minocaro had like a Therian Golem in hand, you can feed there because you maybe pick up a second and then you can play 2 big creatures instead of having just 1 big creature on board. But against red, which is a deck that struggles against big stats all in 1 creatures, then you don't need to split between 2. This 14/14 is more than enough to take out everything that ChaeHolic has.
Horsemaster play onto the Brigand to hit face. A little extra fair that only gives him 3. That means he can drop another Brigand, save up for Ground Shaker. But what do you do about Dwardia? Well, walk around.
Yeah, and again, it is just flooding small creatures onto the board. Minocaro with just a couple means that he's not going to be able to clear as many as ChaeHolic has in every single turn. So you don't get as much value out of the stats that you actually have on board. Ooh, and there is a Therian Golem.
6/11 Therian Golem. By looking at this, like you wouldn't think that with 5 creatures on board that you would be behind, but that's exactly what the case is here. It's just there's so many creatures from Minocaro. Just doing a little buff trick there, even with Dwardia moving to get the buff and then clearing. I'd imagine. Ooh, do you clear the Axe Grinder or the Brigand? Because you want Laya. I think you clear the Brigand here. Keep Dwardia where they are. No, I don't think you care about the Axe Grinder because it's not gonna. You're already harvesting. He's already harvesting over there with the Brigand anyway. So you just leave the Axe Grinder. It's just gonna be there. You want to clear whatever's in front.
Yeah, the only reason to go for the Axe Grinder there is because you then force ChaeHolic to decide between attacking the orb with 2 of the Brigand attack or the 4 of the Herald and move the Brigand somewhere else. But the Brigand could have stepped over and attacked Laya, and together with the Horsemaster actually killed it off. Whereas clearing the Brigand with Dwardia means ChaeHolic has to use the Herald and the Horsemaster to clear off Laya, which is more stats removed from the board. And actually, it's going to be Ground Shaker instead even. But it's still more stats removed from the board than the clear that ChaeHolic potentially could have had if Minnow had left the Brigand alive.
Yeah, and Ground Shaker here can do some cleanup on the Laya, create another Shimmering Statue to deal with. Axe Grinder joining in the parade around Dwardia. Everyone is ignoring Dwardia to the best of their abilities, and each time he does that, he stops Dwardia from getting its buff, or from having a place to go get its buff. But all he has to do is just move the Therian Golem down, clear that off, and Dwardia can do the little teleporting around. 3/5 Deepwood Stalker.
Yeah, that seems pretty good. It's almost a full clear here from Minocaro. Just 1 creature will be left on board. And an Ancient Boar picked up.
He could either leave the Horsemaster or the Brigand on board and clear everything else pretty easily.
It is a little awkward to go for because of the way Dwardia moves. You kind of have to do things in a specific order. But if you go Therian Golem attacks into the Axe Grinder, and then Deepwood Stalker first to clear off the Brigand, you then move Dwardia down and move it onto the forest that the Brigand is on. if Minocaro tried to do that in an opposite order before going for the stalker, yeah, exactly. Anything that ChaeHolic plays right now is just not powerful enough. About halfway through the deck, we've seen Baldurian, we've seen Garridan, we've seen 2 Ground Shakers, I believe, and now we've seen Cypher, meaning a lot of ChaeHolic's big endgame creatures are now gone. And we're going to see still another Therian Golem Minocaro just picked up, but even before that, something like an Ancient Boar is still a 5/6, which is still difficult for ChaeHolic to deal with, and opens up a beautiful line with the forest there, allowing Dwardia to get over and kill Cypher before ChaeHolic's even able to take advantage at all.
Dwardia is such a treat to watch. Maybe even Emperor's Command. The reason here, this is a good Emperor's Command. The reason is because you put yourself out of bomb slinger range, and you keep your 17/6 that almost wins the game in one hit.
That is so heads up by Minocaro. He's doing so many things at the perfect efficiency for this game. There was a move earlier with Dwardia where he could have just attacked into a creature and instead moved onto the forest and then teleported back to the same position just to get the extra +1/1. Move like that. The line that we saw previously with the Deepwood Stalker, just Minocaro is planning for absolutely everything that possibly could happen in every move that he makes this game.
And he does it so quickly. Like, we spend time here talking about it for several minutes sometimes. This is going through his mind in like seconds. You know, he already makes these decisions. Okay, Dwardia going back is not as wimpy as it looks. Dwardia can easily, next turn, with that Boar's help, attack face for 19 damage.
Yeah, and you know, even the Dwardia going for that play, like you said, it's almost resetting just to stay safe out of bomb slinger ranges, because if necessary, it's going to be the one hit, like the one shot from Dwardia, even in 2 turns if necessary. You step onto a forest, it goes to 19. The turn after, you teleport it up to an aggressive forest, and that is the 20, the one-shot potential that usually we only see from something like Soul Eater decks.
And there was no way for ChaeHolic to stop all the land. He did make some basic lands, but there's still one opening for this Ancient Boar to make a forest, or to allow the creation of a forest right here by the orb. Dwardia ports over, 19 damage. It's not enough to win, though. There is a Feed the Forest in hand. I don't think he has any buffs, actually. I haven't seen the Elderwood's Embraces or Runan's Command.
Yeah, I don't believe we've seen any decks from, or any buffs from Minocaro when we saw this deck played earlier. I think the entirety of the buffs are off of the actual creatures themselves, whether it's Beastmasters or whether it is the Oaklings. Earlier on in the day, the other Beastmaster that we saw from, I think it was Dilgarno, when we saw his Beastmaster back in round 1, it was based off Verdant Emissaries. But it seems like the new style coming out from Beastmaster is going for buffs solely from creatures, not anything from events from hand.
And by not moving Dwardia there, that means he is relying on himself. Okay, well, now he can't. Now Dwardia will not be able to get the one-hit kill, the one-turn kill, without any kind of movement trick, which don't exist. So because Dwardia was not teleported there, that that slows the lethal down. I think it would have been okay to move it over there. I guess it turns out in hindsight, no, yeah, he still would have lost Dwardia, I think. But he
we're
still
gonna
would
see
have
it.
the other creatures marching forward.
The Dwardia one-shot coming through. Oh, it's not even going to be...
No, you can't do it because you have to... Remember, you have to move
Oh,
Dwardia.
you have to move. That's correct. Okay, yeah.
So you have to have a land next to the orb to do the one-shot. But you could just set it up like this, so it's, it's basically one hit still. But even without Dwardia, I mean, look at the rest of the board. Does he really need Dwardia? Dwardia at this point is just for the swag. I mean, no, he doesn't even let Dwardia get lethal. I wanted to see a 20 damage from Dwardia.
All right, there we have it. Minocaro avenging the loss from his first green deck with a very nice win on the Beastmaster, recovering with just all the value that he was able to get that game. Takes ChaeHolic off of his red deck, and we will go into match point, championship point for Minocaro.
Yep. 2-0, or I'm sorry, 2-1 for Minocaro. This is for all the marbles, potentially $1,250 to the first place finisher. ChaeHolic, by the way, playing from South Korea at this point. I think it's near 7 a.m. for him, or very early in the morning. So very tired, very exhausted. They've been playing Feria all day, both these players. And this is it. This is the final match of the day.
It looks like we just have one of our spectators potentially bugged out from one of the other streams here, but we will just give it a minute and let them potentially sort out what's going on. And there it is. Perfect. So, yeah, as mentioned, 2-1 Minocaro on match point against ChaeHolic's red-yellow burn. Looks like it's going to be a deck that potentially could get onto green and end it the way that ChaeHolic attacked in game number 2, with his red getting on green before it could really set up. Big thing, Minocaro is running Emperor's Command, so he potentially does have that healing. Could be very important later on in the game if ChaeHolic makes a play to try to just end the game quickly, and then Minocaro has that answer.
Playing in the Burning Oversky, perhaps appropriately. ChaeHolic with a red-yellow control deck. This is not a burn deck. Am I correct in this? Divine Guardian, Derelict Tower. This is what a red-yellow control deck looks like.
I mean, we saw some of these earlier on. I still think it's more burn style. It's just not creature burn. It's event burn. So you have Derelict Towers. You have, of course, the Cypher's Wrath, Flame Bursts. I think it's got running Fire Bombs as well, but it's also running Hellfires. It's running Wind Soldiers as small clears, and then you have Divine Guardians basically just to collect Feria with their Divine. But I don't think it runs the way that I think of red-yellow control in things like direct removal of Last Nightmare and Choking Sand in yellow. But it's just not what we typically think of as red-yellow burn when it's that creature burn.
Yeah, there does need to be a good amount of, like, I wonder, I'm thinking about what the win condition is here. So it would have to be things like Derelict Tower on the face, Cypher's Wrath, and there has to be enough burn to win the game that way. Otherwise, what other... Is this going to go face? No. Okay, then I'm not actually sure what's going on. Land prepare at the Living Willow, fine, but what's his plan for the Grove Guardian? Why did he ping it here? So he's going to continue to ping it until he burns, until he draws a burst, or Cypher's Wrath plus something else.
Because I believe when we saw this deck earlier on in round 2, Minocaro versus Werfs, there was Bloodsingers in it, I think.
Look at this. This is not... Okay, that's not what I expected. This is going to allow Leia to move up and still threaten that Living Willow. Next turn, that Willow will not be able to escape. He'll have to block again with something, and the only things he have are things that he doesn't want to lose. This Beastmaster and these Grove Guardians. Okay, so farewell to Willow, since he is he's marked for death anyway.
Phenomenal pickup there by Minocaro to get the Beastmaster, though. So much extra value now generated through these cards. Even though Leia is going to pick up one of these creatures, the extra value that Minocaro's now getting and is able to protect should allow him to start snowballing onto this side of the board.
This deck, man. Okay, I'm starting to get it now. Hellfires are here. Oh, before trading with Laya? Wait. I mean, I think that was just a straight up mistake, right? You're going to trade with Laya no matter what.
Yeah, I believe so. He essentially missed 1 damage there because, like you said, you're going to trade with Laya no matter what. So attacking in first means that the 1 Hellfire proc that went onto the Grove Guardian would not have hit that.
Yeah, I mean, that could, imagine if that would have hit the Beastmaster there. You know, it is, like we said, it is really late for ChaeHolic. He could be getting really tired and also exhausted. So, I just think that's a straight up mistake there. There is another Hellfire in hand. Doesn't need it though, when he can just ping directly onto that Beastmaster. Here comes the second Divine Guardian of the game, and Destructive Volley is in ChaeHolic's deck too, which hints to me that he put this deck in here to counter very specific matchups. Yellow flyers, you know, yellow control, that type of stuff. That would be great for him.
Yeah, most of the time you don't want 2 Divine Guardians on board because if you do take lethal damage, both of them will die at the same time. But in this situation, ChaeHolic just needs the extra Feria. He can see that the one on the right is being contested and it will eventually die. So setting up the one onto the left, probably just going to go for a double Hellfire next turn.
Yeah, I have to feel that this is not the deck that ChaeHolic wanted to ever play. He never wanted to play against green, this type of green deck with this deck. That was never the intention. This is a deck designed to do a very specific thing and counter a very specific matchup or group of matchups, and it's really awkward against this green deck.
It's double Hellfire and see where the chips lie, I think.
Well, you cross your fingers and toes, you double Hellfire, all 14 land on Minocaro's orb, and then you just draw a Flamer. This is the last. If Minocaro wins this, he wins the entire series. So ChaeHolic, this is the reason why he's not giving up. He has to keep playing if he wants to continue playing the series. He needs to win 2 matches in a row, including this one. It's looking really tough. Minocaro has a full board. We gotta see the double Hellfire.
I think ChaeHolic's just saving up for double Hellfire and potentially a Wind Soldier to the orb as well. Currently there's 10, 19, 24 health on board, so it's really unlikely the amount that you actually punch through to get orb damage. So maybe he's just looking for better lines with Wind Soldier, but...
Okay, there's a Firebomb. You know, he can just keep waiting, like you're saying. He can wait one more turn and then do it all. And just hope. I mean, it's possible. It's possible to happen that he could just suddenly win. If the Hellfires land. If the Hellfires are kind.
The Firebomb pickup's actually really big here for ChaeHolic because of the positioning right now. He could Firebomb Leia, and it actually blocks because the structure would spawn in front of the Grove Guardian. It would block that from being able to hit the orb, and that actually gives ChaeHolic 2 extra turns of potentially surviving what would otherwise be a race situation. I think he should have gone for it. Even though he's saving the Feria for a big potential combo play, he takes 9 more damage on this turn than he otherwise would have.
It also would have given Minocaro a healing. Oh, never mind. No. Yeah, actually...
It would have given him the production of the healing, but if ChaeHolic's looking for potentially ending the game next turn, that 1 healing shouldn't be that impactful.
He uses the Emperor's Command. He knows that he's holding up all that Feria for something. This is it. This is the only chance for ChaeHolic to win. He definitely loses next turn. He has a Bloodsinger. Well, he has 20 Feria, so he only needs 14 for the Hellfire, and then an extra 3 for the Wind Soldier. So he could play the Bloodsinger and be fine here just in case some stuff dies for extra damage. He has to make a desert. The Grove Guardian has to die by the orb. And the Wind Soldier, because now 19 is out of range of full Hellfire to the face, which is extremely unlikely, but possible. So the Wind Soldier has to attack the face, or the Bloodsinger needs to do an extra damage. So one of those things need to happen. He's going to do it. There's no other move.
The thing for ChaeHolic here is you can go Bloodsinger, double Hellfire, and then see where all of that lines up and decide on the Wind Soldier.
You're right. Yeah, it won't affect anything. Doing that order does not make you unable to do Wind Soldier afterwards. Oh, he doesn't play the Bloodsinger though. But what else is he going to use the Feria for? Oh my goodness.
He still could have gone Bloodsinger there.
He could have gone Bloodsinger for sure there, and he definitely got 2 more damage there. I mean, but we've already seen the Hellfires actually only hit face
the
twice.
Firebomb.
The Firebomb.
He's still alive.
He's not giving up. He only got healed. Half the damage he did with Hellfire to face was healed by the Shimmer Statue. That's not a good thing. He's down to 0 Feria and just the Bloodsinger. That was a great effort by ChaeHolic. But
I mean, as I mentioned, the double Hellfire is a lot of damage, but there was so much health on board for Minocaro. So even though you get that big chunk out onto the board, it still was not enough. I think it dealt 2 damage. Actually, I don't think it did any damage to the orb, because the 2 damage that eventually went to the orb there, I think was from. Oh no, he didn't even play the Bloodsinger, did he? So it was just 2 damage to the orb from the Hellfire out of a possible 18. So yeah, as soon as Minocaro started taking control onto the board, he just had way too much life on his creatures for those Hellfires to ever punch through. And I think, as you mentioned, it was a deck designed as a specific counter, and it just was not the right matchup there for ChaeHolic. So Minocaro taking the match there, taking home the grand finals of the Cypher Seasonal Cup.
I've lost track of how many cups Minocaro has won at this point, but put another notch on his belt. He takes another seasonal cup, another $1,250. Well done. ChaeHolic, no slouch, $750 for him. Well played. He's staying up way into the night over there in South Korea. Minocaro, our French player. Congratulations to both of them, and congratulations to all of our top finishers today. Really, everybody who played this tournament. If you played this Feria tournament today, you're one of the best Feria players in the game, clearly. And we're watching the best of the best here in the grand finals. And after a full day of tournamenting, here, I think we're going on 8 hours. That's it. That's the end of the tournament. You've seen it all. You've seen all of the best players play against each other, and you've seen Minocaro come out on top. Whew. All right. Well, I guess it's time to thank everybody for watching. And I hope everyone got their prizes they wanted from stream. I hope everyone got their eggs. If you got your egg and it hasn't hatched yet, don't worry. It will hatch before the end of the weekend. You'll get one of those new yaks, or maybe one of the other yaks, depending on how many you have already. We're looking to do more hatchings in the future now that we have some more yaks to go through. This is Feria. It's a video game. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. Please, if you enjoyed what you saw today and you don't already have the game, consider picking it up. Or if you're missing maybe one of the DLCs that you don't have, you could consider getting Fall of Everlife Resurgence or a puzzle pack called Elements. That's pretty fun and has a lot of puzzles you can play through. Thank you for supporting Feria and being here and watching and chatting. I've been watching chat. It's been a lot of fun. The games have been really great. The commentary has been great. Thank you to Scorch, Matrion, and also Frosty, who's in the background. Frosty, I don't know if you realize, he's been running production all day, Frosty Reindeer. Normally we have Aquablad, but Aquablad couldn't make it today. So Frosty has been running it all day long and doing a very good job, and also commentating at the same time. We are going to have more to announce soon. We are working on another expansion. Not quite ready to share too many spoilers on that yet. You can keep track of our blog post, our weekly blog post, where you can see some teasers about that in the banner art. Make sure to follow Feria TV, by the way. If you aren't already, please click the heart that's in the lower left or lower right, I forget, of your screen, and give us a follow so you can see whenever we go live with big events like this. I think that's about all I have to say. So, Scorch, you have anything to add?
No, it was another great day. A lot of very high-level play from the players that we saw, and then phenomenal end to the day. Some very funny matches as well. So no, another very enjoyable tournament. Congratulations again to those who played, as you mentioned, just qualifying in this type of tournament, which is the top 32 players, is an accomplishment in its own right. But that being said, making a deep run through it is phenomenal for those guys.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out, if you didn't know, my name is Frosty Reindeer, and like Atma said, I did run the production today, and I do also do some other stuff on my Twitch channel, but I just wanted to, throw in a thank you to all the players that came out and put on a great show for us today, and for Atmaz letting me run production and giving me that opportunity. It was a great experience, and I hope to maybe be back in the future. So thank you for that. Once again, thank you to all the people that were a part of the tournament, casters, players, people that, worked on visual assets and stuff in the background. It's a really, really great experience for myself, and hopefully it was for the viewers and players as well. So thank you again for that.
Yeah, great job. And make sure you guys follow Frosty Reindeer. Someone can post his or paste his link in Twitch chat. Follow Frosty Reindeer because he also streams a lot of other tournaments we do. Our championship league tournaments, which I should bring up, are open for signups. We have 2 more tournaments coming this month, $400 tournaments, completely open. Unlike today, where you had to qualify over 3 months, these are completely open tournaments. Anyone can sign up for them. You can go to esports.fair.com to see those dates and sign up for them and register. Make sure you're registered on Battlefy, and yeah, you can be you up here on the screen one day.
All right, and I think that's just about everything. Just about ready to wrap this one up. So thanks again, and we'll see you guys in a few months.
Sounds good to me. Thanks, everybody, and have a good night or day or whatever time.